Hi, Andy. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Phanuel, can I ask you to introduce yourself first, please?
Okay. My name is Phanuel Mutumburi. I'm the Business and Operations Director at ISCRI, which is the Ipswich and Suffolk Council for Racial Equality.
Thank you, Phanuel, and thank you for agreeing to this to doing this interview with me. I've got 4 questions for you.
That's a very important question. Thank you very much, Andy. And this has been quite a difficult time because we haven't seen anything like this before. So it's been quite challenging, particularly for myself in terms of giving confidence to my team and supporting my team and just making sure that everybody's well-being, be it physical well-being and mental well-being is looked after in this space. And it's very easy to forget yourself as you are trying to make sure that everyone is okay. I'm very lucky that I've got a very, very good team at ISCRI and the Suffolk Law Center, which is another charity that I also lead, and we have been looking after each other. We have team meetings every Wednesday, and then on Thursdays we have a tea break, what we call the tea break, where we just talk about things that are outside of work. And that has helped to keep everybody grounded and everybody positive. So during the team meetings, we talk about work, and we talk about the support that everybody needs. But we also have the usual supervisions and stuff like that. And so yes, it's also taking those breaks, going out for a walk and walking in the garden. And just looking after yourself and maybe moving away from work a little bit, because it's been so busy, surprisingly, because when we were going home we thought things are going to be slowing down and there's going to be less to do, but actually it's multiplied, and with the work that we do there's been so much to do. So discipline has been very important, to just take some time and recharge batteries and then come back again, and support yourself and support the team that you work with, and yeah, it's worked out pretty well so far. I still have got my team on board, so it looks like everything is working very well.
That's fantastic to hear that you're looking after yourself and your team, and they're allowed to look after themselves too. That's good.
So a lot of the work that ISCRI does is about community engagement. The majority of the work that we do is to be a conduit through which communities can engage with mainstream service provision. A lot of the times we hear things like hard to reach communities, and our role as an organization is to make sure that we don't have any hard to reach communities, that when mainstream service provision is developing a service, is maybe commissioning services, or they are doing any consultation, that they reach to each and every one of our communities, and that's our role. And a lot of that takes place in the physical space. So we have to go to people, we have to go to where they are. We meet people in community groups, we meet them in churches, we meet them in local mosques, in libraries, and in some such places. Even sometimes we even go to people's homes and engage with them in those spaces. So this has impacted our work in a big way, because we haven't been able to physically engage with people in a way that we've always done. But also for the people that we work with, a lot of these people are so reliant on those physical spaces. People go to befriending groups, they go to libraries, as I've said, they go to their local churches, and not having that, which for some people, be they migrants, is probably their only support system that they've got. It has been very, very challenging. I mean, people's worlds have been reduced to just the 4 walls that they've got, and for some people who maybe don't have enough outside space, it has been a real challenge for them. So we have been trying to reach out to all those people that we have been in contact with, and just making sure that their well-being is looked after, and making sure that any needs that they might have, we try ourselves, or through other agencies, signposting other agencies to provide them with support. But it has been a very challenging time. There are also issues around the constant government guidance that has been coming out around what people should do and shouldn't do. Some of that has come out in not in the languages that some of the people that we support and that we provide support to understand. And so it's about interpreting some of those messages for people to understand. It's about saying to people, some of whom get their messages from back home where they've come from, and you find out that some of the guidance might be completely different to the guidance here. So people are listening to their friends and family overseas or in other places, and it's about going to those people and say, look, this is the guidance here and this is how you follow that, and being able to support them in that space. There's also issues with some of the people that do jobs that haven't been able to isolate in or go into lockdown the same way that some of us have done. So you've got frontline workers, you've got people that work in care homes, people that do cleaning jobs, people that work in hospitals, factories, and farms. And a lot of those people are people that are in the groups that we work with. And in some places the guidance hasn't been very clear. So somebody's leaving their home and they're going to work and they're not even sure what the government guidance around that, whether in some places there is no proper self-isolating, they're not being provided with PPE, and people are scared that I have to go to work because I need to survive, but at the same time I don't know if I'm going to catch this disease or what is going to happen. So it's been providing that support to to communities through our work at ISCRI, but also through some of the legal work that we do with Suffolk Law Centre.
Wow. I completely get the fact that if you're in a minority community, then isolation is even more of an issue. And I completely understand that there's been a flood of communication and at times it's not being communicated well. So your role as ISCRI is absolutely crucial.
So I think the answer to that is yes and no. I say yes because there's been so many initiatives that have come out. So things like the fellow program, which has helped sometimes for job retention purposes. You've got things like locally we have the home but not alone services. There are different groups that have come together to look at resilience, to look at joined up working with each other and seeing how we respond to this. So there's been some very good work and a lot of work going into this, and I think people have stepped up and said we want to do something to make sure that we mitigate against the issues to do with this pandemic. But I think the no part is with all these sort of groups and all these initiatives that have been set up, you question who is actually informing this work and who is at the table informing what the response looks like. And for some of the communities that we work with, unfortunately their voice is not represented at the table, and so you find out that we have had to go and challenge some of the services and say have you thought about people that have no recourse to public funds, whether they can access certain services that you're providing because they are coming from public funds? Have you thought about people that have got language barriers who are not able to read this poster or this email that you are sending out, and how they can engage with your service? But also there are instances where there has been an expectation to say somebody can pick up a phone and call a number and being able to articulate a range of questions that somebody at the end of the phone is asking. And sometimes some of the people that we support are unable to do that, and we have had to challenge some of those services to say maybe that work can be done by an advocate or somebody who's working with and so it's been we have been doing quite a lot of work trying to get those people to rethink some of the things that they've put out there, which they thought are fantastic services, but those services might not be good enough for some of the communities that we work with. And so the advice is really going forwards, when we get into something like this, it's about looking around the table and seeing which voice is not represented, and making sure that everyone has got an opportunity to put their voice forward and to be able to inform what services look like. But this is a perennial problem that we've always had, and we understand that a lot of it comes from the fact that there's capacity constraints in some of the communities, and they cannot be in every meeting. But it's also about the powers that be, the authorities, to think about creative ways of engaging with those communities. Sometimes we can't just say, just because people haven't turned up for meetings, then we can forget about them and move on. They are still our people. We still need to serve them, and it's about looking for ways of how to better engage them in the spaces that they are in, rather than always expecting them to come to you. So I think that's where some of the failing has been, and we have had to unpick a lot of that. You have had to handhold some of the agencies to show them where the gaps really are in terms of the provisions and the initiatives that have been set up, and in instances where we've done that, there's been positive response, and so we are we're quite grateful that services have responded. But I think we could have done much better by thinking about these things from the onset.
Absolutely. And that's a very balanced but very honest response, Phanuel. And we need to also remember that ISCRI is a very small organisation trying to serve a very large, well, I say large, but very diverse set of communities in Suffolk.
So, I mean, it's a sad event that took place in America, and it's an event. It's a tragedy. Somebody passed away. 4,000 miles away in America. But the reality of it is, it has exposed some of the failings in our society. It has shown that this is what inequalities in a society can lead up to, and the positive thing that has come out of this is the realization by people across all communities that this is not the kind of society that we want to live in. And people have come out in solidarity with the messages that the Black Lives Movement has been pushing forward. And I think the thing that we need to be thinking about now is solidarity messages are fantastic. It's positive. Everybody wants to be in support, but actually, how do we start to address some of these challenges? I know there are national discussions that are taking place in terms of taking forward some of the studies that have been done before, some of the consultations that have been done before. But I think locally we also need to introspect. We need to look at ourselves and say, what kind of a county do we want to be? By giving people opportunities, we actually grow the cake that we then all have to share. When you've got people in your community who are not benefiting from some of the opportunities, it doesn't help anyone. So we lose, as a society together. And I think the way forward is for individuals to say, what part can I play? How do I use, whatever that might be? It might be your own privilege. How do you use your privilege to try and move this agenda forward, to challenge people that are, have got negative views, and to address some of those things. But it's also looking at organizations and saying, you look inside your organization and you say, are we a fair and balanced organization that gives opportunities to everyone? And this might be through your recruitment practices, it might be through your retention practices, but it's also through, how people can rise through the ranks in your organization, and making sure that all those processes are fair. In addition, you also need to look at the services that you deliver and your client groups, and say, are we responsive to the needs of all the people that we work with? And the way you are able to do that is to engage positively with those people and understand what their needs are, and then being able to deliver services that are responsive to the needs of those people. And I think it's less about talking now and less about solidarity messages, which is all good, but actually saying these are the SMART objectives that we are going to come up with, and say between now and the end of the year or end of the next financial year, we would have done A, B, C, D towards the creation of a better society, a more equal society. And those are the things that, I would expect organizations, individuals to be putting out there so that people can actually go back and challenge and say, you promise that, you're going to increase the diversity of your organization. You're going to increase these practices. And so we want to see what you've done, towards that. And it's only by including those things in our action plans, in our policies, and being able to, go back constantly and look at how well we are delivering towards that we can start to see positive change. So, that is my call to particularly people in positions of authority to say we now want to start seeing the tangible, actions that you are going to do towards, making sure that we are a fairer society. And at ISCRI, we have started this strategy called Towards a Fairer Suffolk, and we are going to be supporting individuals and organizations to ensure that people understand what that looks like for their specific organizations, and actually then being able to, come up with those solutions that will help all our communities going forwards.
Well said, Phanuel. And Healthwatch Suffolk is right behind you on that, seriously. So please also tell us what we need to be doing better as well.
Exactly. No, that's a good thing. Yeah.
Thank you, Phanuel.
No worries.